Guys, welcome back. Good morning. Today is Monday, November 11th, to another edition of Ink Production by INC2. I am Sal, your systems architect, IT professional, and trainer. In this session, I want to talk about a little something different. This is something that's part of the M365 environment, Microsoft's environment. It's widely known in a lot of businesses. Some businesses are on premises and planning on hybriding and changing to hybrid, or they have hybrid, or just changing to the on premises, to the cloud environment with your SharePoint online. So in this one, we're gonna create. Let's create a SharePoint server. And then this one, I think I'm gonna create a 2019. We can go with 2022 if you want, or 2016. It's totally up to you. But I want to go a little bit, a couple years less, just to kind of give you guys the idea and the infrastructure and the evolution and how it's everything's been involved. From 2007 to like 2010, 2013. There's been a lot involved in the last 20 years. So you have to kind of understand um, the differences, and there are some similarities that are still around. So just making sure that you understand what that is, right? So I'm going to go ahead and open up our documentation here. This is your documentation from our learnmicrosoft.com. So I want you guys to open this up and take a look at this. For IT professionals, so there's different ways of finding resources to manage the on SharePoint and OneDrive in your Microsoft 365 environment. There's also migrating to M365, so from your file shares, your server, your box, and other cloud storage providers. Again, this is all here for you to take a look. And then we also have our developers, our SharePoint users, who are looking to find the training if you don't know about SharePoint users. And if you want to get some answers and training on the different modules, please feel free and go ahead and type in SharePoint, and it'll give you all the modules that you want to take a look at. From my knowledge, yeah, the certification is still around. I'm not sure if it's been deprecated, but the MS exams are, and sorry, the 7667 ones are they've been deprecated. I'll kind of explain to you guys, um, as we go along with that, but just to kind of give you an insight on how that works and how do we move along with that, right? So when we talk about SharePoint servers, we talk about what is it, you know, before we get started in the installation, the deployment, not just the training aspect of it, but you guys will learn how to install it and how to architect your boxes, your bare metal machines, and in this topic, we're not going to be using hypervisor, although it's recommended, and I'll explain why. But we'll do everything here on our VMware, my favorite box, my VMware workstation. So that's something I'm going to be showing you guys how to do it. I won't be installing it on the S6i for this time, but again, we'll attach everything to our domain controller, and we'll move from there. So I'll go ahead and show you guys how to create the machine from scratch and give you guys some ideas and tips and whatnot, and follow through with that. Okay, so let's get back to our topic here. And I'm just gonna grab a picture. I should have a picture somewhere if I'm not mistaken. If I did I? No, so I'll have to take a look at that. So SharePoint. There's a diagram here for that. There you go. So that'll be our first one I want to choose. I'll take that picture as my background just because I like it. Post it here in the background. All right. I'm just going to second here. All right. So, okay. There you go. Okay. All right. So again, let's go ahead and start our lecture. What is SharePoint, right? So when we get started, SharePoint, again, if you need the documentation or the links, I'll send over to you guys as we move forward. Okay, so SharePoint is a web application platform developed by Microsoft. It was first launched in 2001. This is just an circa 2001. It's been around for what, 23 years now. SharePoint's historically been associated with intranet content management. So intranet is inside, um, and at in, intranet is inside, and internet is outside, right? So when we talk about that, um, we talk about the internet inside and intranet outside, inside the branch, and then internet outside the public, right, into the outside world. So, and document management, but recent versions of it have significantly broader capabilities. You also know, state that SharePoint is a powerful collaboration. When we talk about collaborating, it's a powerful word. You'll see that a lot. Platform that lets you share and manage content, knowledge, and applications to empower your teamwork, right? So it can also be used on premises, like we stated. With a Microsoft 365 Enterprise subscription. Uh, Again, to take advantage of all the latest features, um, right? So can be used with in a hybrid environment as long as you have that 365 Enterprise subscription for it. Um, and the different versions of the enterprise versions for the on-premises as well. And I'll show you the differences between the enterprise and the standards. So apparently we again SharePoint takes advantage of all the latest features. Um, it can be used on premises to share common resources and applications on site. Can be used to search, to discover information and expertise across your organization. And our fourth top point is stay in the know with personalized news in SharePoint Home and SharePoint mobile apps. Again, you'll see that once we have everything installed, so you guys kind of get a better picture of what that is, right? So here's a link. Open up the link. I'll post that on the YouTube description page. I'll get you guys to look it over when you guys have some time. So if I were to open up that web page again to get started, I'll open up what it'll explain a little bit more of what that is. If you want to learn a little bit more, where we start, if somebody's new to the server and you want to make a plan as to where you're going, right? Here's the perfect read for you guys to take a look at in terms of the different versions, right? It's got the hardware and software requirements and the different prerequisites. Before you architect, you want to design how large your company is, for different large enterprises and smaller divisions or smaller companies that want to deploy the server farm. Uh, so you'll kind of learn how to do that on one server or the farm servers, right? So you'll kind of understand that. So learn to understand that once you read it. So I have a SharePoint server installed. If you want to have one already installed and you just want to apply the new feature packs or updates, you can go ahead and read this section here as to the version that you have and the different upgrade versions and how you want to upgrade from 2016 to 2019 or 2013 and want to upgrade to 2019. How do you do that? So there's some documentation. If we were to click on that, it'll give you the different high level overviews to upgrade in Visio and PDF. So you'll kind of open up the Visio, right? You can open that up, and it'll give us our different flow charts on how to start from 2013 to 2019, right? So these are some good flows so that you kind of understand the different architecture and upgrades from the different versions. We also have our Visio diagrams. So again, if you have a Visio diagram, you can download the VSDX file, right? You can open the file if it allows us to. On it, double click on it, hopefully read it. Allow us to read it. Because we don't have the web viewer, let's see if I can get the web viewer installed for Visio. Web installed. I can get that. I'll try it for now. I can add it to an existing plan if I want, right? Um, and there's some free versions I can give a try here. But usually, a lot of people will go with a includes web and desktop apps, right? So you can try these for a month just to kind of open up the different versions. So remember, uh, the different plans are available for trial, right? So we can see the different plans. And again, when we log into our um, admin center, our marketplace, we can add that plan. So this is just for viewing diagrams and minor editing, right? Like this is just, you can just sign in and we can sign in with our different accounts. So as we sign into our new account, hopefully, and let's get the request approved with our authenticator app. So I'm just gonna grab my phone here and authenticate. You guys should also be authenticating your accounts as we continue I think as the 15th of October, it forced a lot of companies to authenticate. So make sure that your company has done so. If not, please feel free to work with your departments to kind of get that done and implement that on all devices, whether it be at a phone or whether it be at a Windows or Linux or whatever device you have, your Mac devices, whatever devices you guys have, just make sure you implement that. Okay. Second here, should be signed in. Okay, there we go. My apologies, guys. Okay, so I'm going to re-sign in. Put in the number here, and I'm going to authenticate. And there you have it. I'm now signed in. So here's my Visio, right? So hopefully I can um, should be able to. So if we try to get the Visio again, and we show in folder, we double click on that folder. There we go. So I want to keep. I want to open. It should open it. That's because I need to add the app. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll log into the admin portal. Once I log into the admin portal, I'll add the subscription here quickly. If I haven't done so, so I did add it. So that's good. I should be able to log in, assign it to a user. Let me assign this license to somebody here. Give me a sec. I'm gonna assign the license here. I'm going to assign this one to see the changes. There we go. So hopefully I should be able to refresh refresh the browser now, and I should have the application hopefully very shortly. Um, should open automatically, but let's give it a second or so. Um, usually it takes about 20 minutes or so, but should be able to. So it just hasn't come in, so I'm just going to sign out. Right now it should open. I'm going to log in again. I'm going to approve the sign in. Enter in the number. Authenticate. Approve my sign in request. Hopefully that's good. And it's taking some time. Okay, so I haven't received it yet. So I'll just have to wait a little bit more. I did assign it to the user. Um, and let's see if I can go to port Visio Visio.microsoft, Microsoft.com. Let's see what happens here. And I'm going to sign in. And I see that I have I'm just waiting. I'll have to wait for it to come. It might take some time, but you guys kind of get the gist of it. I signed the license to the user. That should take a little bit of time. Again, you have to sign into the your portal.office.com or Microsoft.com. And that should automatically come to you soon as you give the light. Yeah, it's just taking some time. So let's just wait. We'll have to wait on it, but you guys kind of get the gist of things. Those are Visio files and Visio folders. Again, um, I've given myself that license, so I should be okay. All right. Let's just wait. We'll come back to that. Uh, okay, so that's done. So if you do want to learn how to open up the Visio files, you need the licensing for that. Just remember to read up on that and do what I did and show you what I did to kind of read up on that. Okay. Um, let's go back to the doc here. So when we look at an actual um, SharePoint hybrid environment, and we kind of divide it into two parts. We divide it into our online, right? So this is our hybrid environment we call, right? Right. So my hybrid environment, we have our on-premises, right? And then within our on-premises, we have multiple servers, right? We have our Windows Server AD, right? We have our AD Connect, right? And that'll synchronize our directories to our Azure AD tenants online within our cloud environment. And we also have here in this instance, we have an Active Directory Federation service. And that's our server to server trust between our on-premises ADCS and our AD tenants, right? Uh, this isn't a course on AD Federation services, but I'll kind of give you an idea of how it kind of works, right? So you have to understand you need the different roles for that specific server. So for your roles, you have your ADDS, your DNS for your Windows server, and then for your ADFS, you need your ADC roles, ADCS roles, right? For your to create your certificate templates, right? Your DNS names, your common names, and so forth, right? So you kind of understand how you have your on-premises, um, you know, you have they're all domain joined, obviously. Your ADFS is going to have your ADC roles and your ADFS roles. You're going to have a separate server for that. So that's going to have your ADC, which is your Active Directory Certificate Services, right? And we're gonna you can go ahead and install that if you'd like. It's done through our um I'm not gonna do that, but I can show you here quickly on my server here. So if we were to go to our you would have to install the ADDC role. And this server must be a separate server, separate from your DC, again, based on the picture that you see. So you're gonna create another one, and then you're just going to uh, add the role and feature for that. And again, you know, you also want to talk about how remote access when we talk about ADFSs and being able to connect to the AADC remotely. So you also want to create a WAP, which is your web application proxy. So that kind of work, and that could be a work group. Again, it doesn't have to be domain joined. So you need that trusted host, right? So you have to kind of understand how that works, right? So within a separate server, obviously you're just going to add these two roles, and I'll show you where they are. Right? So you have your ADFS, right? And you have your ADCS, right? So if we were to add these features, right, and go on and move on here, you're providing single sign-on SSO web single sign-on capabilities to authenticate the users. So the user is able to authenticate, right? And the server is able to authenticate a user to any web application using the single user account, right? So it helps our organizations bypass the need for secondary accounts, like I mentioned before, um, allowing you to project a user's digital identity, so you can digitally identify somebody that way. And again, so this computer has to be domain joined. The WAP does not. Um, so you need to have this machine um, successfully installed with the Federation services, and the WAP, the Web Application Proxy Rule Service, and the remote access. And this is separate. Again, it's again in for production. You have to purchase a lot here, so it becomes expensive, and you have to know what you're doing. Um, it looks pretty straightforward. Again, you can go ahead and read the different roles and services here and things to note. Just know that you'll need a DC domain, ADDC, an ADFS, and a WAP server, as shown here in my diagram here. Okay. I'll also add a WAP for ADFS, right? So WAP. And that has to be a separate box, right? And that's going to connect to the AADC, right? Okay. Again, you can do that and read up on that and install the different roles and services that you would need for that. So those are the different services you would want to add. Usually in a production environment, you would have to purchase, again, you'd have to make sure the host records are created in your DNS. You would have to purchase the SSL certificate from a public CA like GoDaddy or DigiCert or Namecheap or whatever provider you want. And then you can create the DNS CNAMEs within those CA providers, right? And then install the certificate, right? Uh, you can create internal and external records. You can open ports required between the ADFS. Um, and you also have your IDP, initiated sign-on pages, for your ADFS management, and then creating the different templates for that, and then how that's going to be named, published, the different security objects, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. So there is a long list on that and how that works. We can also talk about within the ADFS. We can talk about different application proxies. I'm not going to talk too much about that, but again, just know that there's no internet to that proxy, to that WAP. It doesn't have to be domain joined. Like I said, it's got to be a workgroup machine. And again, we got to add security to that, and it doesn't have to authenticate a user towards, right? It forwards it. Um, Again, there's different stage rollouts in ADFS. So like you need to kind of, move and migrate all users to the AAD cloud. In with ADFS, it moves the certificate security token through an external public CA or wildcard, for example, and that'll move within the Azure Active Directory. You have your public IP, your static IP, and your dynamic DNS. So actually, with dynamic DNS, I'm gonna actually explain to you guys in another video what dynamic DNS is, but know a little bit about that. Your dynamic DNSs. With ADFS, you don't really have to synchronize the users, right? So Again, you would have to pick whatever you want here. And again, local AD users through the ADFS can connect to the outside organization, like through our web applications, without having to synchronize all the password hashes over the internet to another another environment. I'm gonna close this for now. Again, it's pretty easy to install the role. Just make sure you have a separate box for this. I recommend that you create a ADFS box server, sort of what I have here in my pictures, um, right? And then add the specific, you can have your ADDC role and your ADFS role, right? Your federated services. And that's going to be server to server trust within our environment. And again, that'll kind of connect to our Azure AD tenants, which will allow us to connect to our SharePoint Online. SharePoint Online, if you do have your online, again, this is for hybrid users. If you have your accounts here, you can open up the online services here. And this is going to be our SharePoint Online. And then, but we're not gonna explain too much about this. I'll show you guys after a little bit about this. But my main concern is, and there's a course for that as well too. But my main concern is to get you guys to understand the background and how a lot of companies are architecting that and how designing that. Our main concern is our on-premises environment, right? So let's go ahead without the ADFS, right? So I'm not gonna go ahead and do that for you guys, but have an idea of how infrastructures are done and what they're used for and how they're used for. Um, so this is my admin center, and that's going to have my active site, right? And if I can view that site, this will show me my site where I can have my documents, pages, and site contents within here, right? And I can add and different subsites if I want to add. And I'll explain all of this after in as we move along, but kind of understand this is a site that's generated automatically when you have your subscription, right? So you can follow the next steps and get started and add specific site templates if you'd like, and change these based on your whatever you're looking for. So for example, I want a blank one. I can create my own customization, or I just want to, use one for human resources, for example. I can use their template and this will update my site based on the template that I chose. Right, so here's my communication site for HR, right? And again, these are all pre-configured with you know insurance options, apply for tuition benefits. You can click on that and find out all the information on that, and connect your different sites to that to wherever you want. Right, you can do that and you can edit the page and the different parts to it. So if you click on this section here, um, you know, you can change the pictures if you'd like. Uh, edit the properties within that box. Give it a specific link to click on. It's totally up to you on how you want to design uh, that website. So that's that. We can save that and give the page details within that. And look at the different properties available for that. If you need to add and remove, you can also add and remove over here. As you can see, here's the calendar. So our calendars are, you can put your calendars here, so the company's calendars if you'd like, et cetera, et cetera. So Again, we're not gonna touch too much. I just want to kind of give you guys an idea of the difference between the. You're gonna see the online first, right? And kind of understand what that looks like and have an idea of what that is. If you are an admin and you do have that in your environment, you can go ahead and test that with the different subscriptions that you have. So again, that's located uh, in your admin center, right? With the different licenses. If you click on the SharePoint license within your license, right, or subscription, you should be able to find that there, right? I'm not going to touch any of that. I'm just going to close that for now. Don't need it, but you understand the gist of it. Uh, yeah, there we go. There's my Visio. So Visio finally appeared. And I can should be able to now open. It lets me. Yeah, there we go. The drawing, for example, that I have here, right? And and I should have it. Oh, this is actually connected to the OneDrive. So if I were to save this to the OneDrive, for example, let me grab that file, for example, in a second. Just gonna drag that over, drag that over now. There you go. So I should now be able to open it up. There you go. So there's my VSDX file that's connected to my SharePoint site, right? So I've connected the upgrade 2013 to a SharePoint Server 2019 to Visio, and again I can edit that in my browser, or I can open it in the desktop app. Again, I gotta download it. Um, right? I can just continue. Should be able to for the web layers and small properties and colors. Okay. All right. Not a big problem. I'll download. I can download the app if I like to. Right? And go here, take a look at that, and I should be able to install Visio this way. Let's open folder. Double click on that. You should download Visio now. There you go. So, excuse me. So that's that. Um, again, we talked a little bit about um, we talked about ADFS, CS, and WAP briefly based on diagram, right? And that's just a typical architecture environment. Um, for users, again, it could be different in each company. It doesn't matter. It could be different. Um, so we also talked about our SharePoint Online and you know using Visio Visio subscription to view .vsdx files, right? I showed you guys how to do that. Um, SDX, yeah. So again, you know, So we showed you the different templates and views and how to edit your page, your communication site page, right? Uh, Again, when we look at a bigger picture in terms of SharePoint on premises, now we're going to talk about the on premises. And again, we want to understand that when we talk about the on premises, we talk about the different servers that are involved and and how disaster recovery plays a point for these specific SharePoint apps when we use Azure Site Recovery. Um, our main focus is to understand, you have your web service or your web front end, you have your application servers, right? And that can be used for a crawl server or a query or just any server that's involved in the central admin site. And we're not talking about the cast server like um, we're not talking about the cast server like within SCCM, MECM, in the hierarchy type level, but again, this is totally different. Our central admin center is our main page when we log into our server, SharePoint server site, right? So we can also use sandbox servers for code. And then we also have our database servers that are running content and search databases with SQL. And again, that's all done for high availability and always on feature. Then we talk about disaster recovery. I'm not gonna talk about that too much. High availability. I'll send you guys some links on that where you guys can take a look at the recommendations, the different architectural model before 2016. I'll send you guys some info on that. And our global architectures, we have to understand the key concepts, right? So we have our central site, and that's the location that hosts most of the company data. And this is very, very important key terms to use. I want you guys to know what those are and how we evaluate your WAN connections and your WAN environments, um, where we have, SharePoint servers across those connections. So, different considerations, different before implementing those, we need to evaluate the performance that the users would experience, right? So, for example, here, we have Madrid, which is our central farm, our central deployment. And we have users from Los Angeles, Johannesburg, and Hong Kong um, joining or deploy, trying to um, log into that farm there. So due to the performance improvements within that in the SharePoint Server Global customers who are well connected with WAN connections, again, can expect to succeed with a centralized deployment of SharePoint service. So for enterprise scale customers, it might include more than one farm that's deployed to a single data center. So, you have your data center in Madrid. Most customers can deploy a single farm to meet needs for an organization. So like the United Airlines, for example, and organizations can also use again Microsoft 365. When we look at these global architectures, um, guys, right, and know the different sites, right, and what these different sites mean. You have your central site. It's the location that hosts most of the company data, right? So that'll be our Madrid site based on the picture. And then you'll have your regional site, a location that hosts a subset of the corporate data. So a site, um, you know, and employ computers that are connected by using a combination of LAN and WAN networks. So that's sort of in Madrid, right? You can have that somewhere within there. It's regional. And then you have your distributed environment, right? An environment which employees and company data are dispersed across the globe. So it can be anywhere across the globe on the east side of Los Angeles or on the west side, um, based on the image here. So if we go back to the image, right, you have your Hong Kong SAR, right? And you have your in-country farm, so that farm is deployed inside a political boundary to satisfy the government regulations. Again, um, that's all for you guys to take a look at and read up um, on your own times. So here's an actual illustration that represents a multi-farm architecture designed for manufacturing company that's just fictionally named. So it's just a fictional company with the different farm sites within the different data centers. And this has more than 300 users, right? So you're gonna see that design here. That's kind of cool, right? And these are the cross-farm services that you're gonna want to implement, and kind of follow the search service application. These are all search up service applications for WAN environments, right? So you guys can take a look at that too. Okay, let's go back to our drawing board. Don't worry about it. I don't want to install it. It's not a problem. So if we go back to our slides here, um, you know, we want to plan for virtualization, right? And you know, we deploy these. You should deploy these as a server, a virtual server, on a Hyper-V or other supported platform. But in this instance, we're just going to install it on a VMware box, so just a bare metal machine, right? So that's going to be our design here. My pictures here. Okay. So here's my picture. I'll copy that. And I'm going to open up a new page here. Excuse me. Okay, there we go. So this is going to be just the three machine. I'll explain why. This might change. Again, it might change, and the reason why, um, again, this can change. It's just a test environment for now, right? And then I'm gonna have my clients. Obviously, I'll have my clients. It can change basically depending on the web service, and even in a three-tier deployment. When we talk about that, you got your web servers. You're not gonna have one machine hosting your web servers, your application servers, or your database servers. But in this instance, we're gonna do it like that. We'll have a secondary machine acting as a member that'll have the SharePoint um, installation plus farm, right? So again, when we get to this point, I'll explain all that and what that's used for in a specific environment. So we talk about the servers and whatnot and how that works. Um, so this is going to be our three server environment. Um, and again, these will act as member servers, and I'll explain why down the road when we get to that point, and I'll show you guys and talk to you guys and draw this out a little bit extra. But you'll see that I'll have my three bare metal machines with Windows 2022 or 2019 installed on it, right? And this will have a disk, physical disk, and it will have your physical NIC cards installed. I'll explain all that to you guys in just a second. So again, virtual machines, as we're going to will provide increased flexibility for the IT admins. When we talk about best practices for installation, installing a new version gives you the opportunity to review what you have done in the past, right? So currently, and envision your goals going forward. So as you prepare for your installation, you want to ask yourself these questions. Are you staying on a server for the foreseeable future? If you are, do you currently have existing pieces of your system in the cloud? No, and what customizations or features do you no longer use? And are you ready for a modern approach? and what is working well and what isn't. So these are some things that you can ask. I'll send you the links on that, and you guys can read up on evaluations and whatnot, and all the different customizations that you want. So you can use the BCS to display your data. You can use Power BI and Data Management Gateway instead of using the BCS, which is your business data connectivity. You can adopt the different features like groups and Power Automate, right? You can retire the use of email, site mailbox, or mobile accounts. You know, these are, again, if the portion of your site's already in the cloud, or you're intending to move online in the future, or just adopting the modern features that will help you future proof it, right? So take a look at that. There's some good read for you guys to take a look at. Um, then we talk about limitations. Again, with any installation, there are its limitations. So the server imposes certain restrictions when operating as a virtual machine. So these restrictions stem from the use of your local configuration cache and search index when used in the server farm deployment. As certain hypervisor operations cannot synchronize actions, the configuration cache or the search index may become out of sync with each other, SharePoint server in the farm, or just the databases residing on the SQL server. So SharePoint server doesn't support the following operations while the server is online: virtual machine online backup. So if we're doing a full virtual machine backup, that's required, we need to shut down the server and the SQL server, so that you have to kind of take that into effect prior to taking the backups. So if the restore is required, restore on all server. If a restore is required, restore other servers in the front. So so understand that that is very, very, very important. Okay. Um, these are its limitations. So you have to understand that it doesn't do online backups, right? Um, virtual machine snapshots. If a snapshot of a snapshot of a SharePoint is required, we need to shut down all SharePoint servers and SQL servers in the farm before taking the snapshot. This is it's trust me, if a restore is required, restore all the servers in the farm. We'll delete the snapshot as soon as possible, as it may incur performance problem. It's true though, it does work, taking up space in there. So you can have space in there if you want, or you can just delete the snapshot as soon as you're done, right? Um, we also talk about virtual machine replication. So for Azure Site Recovery, I think we talked about that, but uh, if you haven't, there's a site, I'll send you some information on how to replicate a virtual machine to Azure, how to design your recovery network, how to do a failover test based on our picture here, our source and our support, source target to our secondary site within Hyper-V and to Azure, right? Does it support VMware? Yes, so we are going to be using VMware, physical server, and Azure. Again, it doesn't do that. So NA, these are just some things to keep in mind when using disk-based clusters, and how to use a recovery plan to fill overall tiers. Again, I'm not going to do all this stuff. That's another course, another topic. If you guys are interested in full courses and whatnot, and how to deploy it, please let me know. Give me a message on WhatsApp, and we can talk about other options on how to get that done for your company. Um, when we talk about SAN storage, area network replication of SharePoint server virtual disks, right? SharePoint servers, and then also SharePoint servers also do not support dynamic ballooning memory. I think we spoke about that. And we recommend against using differentiating disks for a long period of time. And I think we spoke about that in our Hyper-V environments. And this is when we talk about Hyper-V. Yeah, so we did. So here's a slide that I've added here from our last class. So it enables a hypervisor to share unused memory in some VMs with other VMs on the same host, right? So VM under normal circumstances, um, again, a VMware, VM and VMware, right? Pages out memory, and then the memory pressure balloons inflates the balloon to retrieve the memory for your ES6i host. Very similar to this. And then that'll kind of your memory pages in to your VM, and that'll deflate the VM memory, right? So when we talk about memory ballooning, that enables the hypervisor to share unused memory in some VMs with other VMs on the same host. Ballooning transfers the decision to allocate available memory resources from the host to the VM, where it can make more accurate assessments. And if we were to kind of explain to you an example case, we would say here, suppose an admin manages a host, right? Your host, that's 160 gigs of available physical memory. That host would support 10 servers with 16 GB of memory assigned to each VM. So for a total of 160. In most workloads, each VM can operate on 8 GB of memory or less, leaving you plenty of unused memory. So that's what memory ballooning is. If you do want to look at some more documentation and some more good reads, uh, I'll send you guys a link on that, or a better link on that. Looks like the link is no longer. Get you guys a better link on that. All right. For vSphere 7, maybe. Let's see if we can get you a better link here, guys. There you go. I'll take this right now. So, uh, it's going to be for version 8, so this will be for version 8. That's fine. Let's see if there's 7.0 here. Change that version. Sure. Okay, so just leave it back. Okay, so we'll just copy this for now. That's fine. Right click, cut, paste that back here. That's a good read for you guys, and I'll post that for you guys. Looks like it's been updated. That's fine. It works. So I'm going to superscript that. There you go. And I'm going to make this a little bit smaller here. Okay. So kind of get the gist of that and how that works. Now we start talking about virtual machine templates. After its limitations, you need to know what the templates and how SharePoint server supports virtual machine templates. So they can be created by installing the SharePoint server prerequisites, right? The SharePoint server and any applicable public updates. Anything other than that, it will not work. So as long as the configuration wizard has not been run, the virtual machine can be saved as a template following your virtual machine software guidance. Anything that's added to that, it will not, you cannot create a template or a clone out of that. So do not create a template from a virtual machine running a SharePoint server that's already joined to the farm. So this has to be disjoined workgroup machine with whatever character you want to add, but you can't have any of the configuration wizard done. You can install the server, but you can't have anything else installed onto that, any of the features within SharePoint. So remember that is important. About SharePoint again. We know that it's a business collaboration platform for enterprise and internet. When people need to work with other people with content and information, or with line of business data, LOB data, they can use their rich out of the box. You can use a rich out of the box set of integrated capabilities in the SharePoint platform. So people can also customize these capabilities to address their business needs and integrate them with other products and solutions. Using the same set of capabilities and tools, companies can deploy SharePoint both inside the enterprise, and that's intranet, and then outside the firewall, that's extranet or the internet. And we talked about that as well earlier on in this video. So employees, customers, and business partners can also work with the platform. Here's your typical site content. I showed you a little bit about that, your wiki page library, uh, picture library, document library, and form library. There's also web parts, discussion boards, contacts, and editors. For document libraries, you have many file types. That includes documents, spreadsheets. Use a document library, for example, a picture library to share collections of digital pictures or graphics. We can use that picture library. So if we want to create some wiki pages, excuse me, we can use the wiki page library to create a collection of those and so forth, right? You guys kind of get the gist of that. You can also add contacts, right? You can add discussion boards, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So these are the different pages you'd want to create for that. Then we also talk about, again, here's a picture of what a site looks like. This is 2019, and then this is dating back to 2007 or 2010, if I'm not mistaken. So these are 2013 as well, too. That's what that looked like. Talk about the SharePoint family, Windows SharePoint services. You have your site framework foundation, your web parts, your lists, your sites, your collaboration features. Then you have your SharePoint portal server, which is an application of the WSS SharePoint service, right? A Windows SharePoint service, areas and listings, search alerts, user profiles, etc., etc. Give me 1 second. Okay, welcome back, guys. So kind of understand the differences because it is important. We are going to get back to the lab. So I'm almost there. Just bear with me. You have to understand the back end first, the history, the architecture before we move on. So it's good to take notes here and ask yourself those questions as you design your own environments and you follow along with me, you'll kind of understand what this all means and in terms of just talking and what they all do. So the more the more you understand first before you actually get into it is detrimental in your success in building specific SharePoint server sites, right? Or farms. right? And we're going to talk about that all, you know, in this course here. If you guys are interested, again, let me know. Um, I have a course here. If you guys are interested, let me know. Send me a message on WhatsApp uh, or in the WhatsApp group, and we can talk about that. When we talk about sites, workspaces, and areas as well in SharePoint and what those are, and collections of pages, lists, and other information, IIS, like the same as a site or a web and front page. And I'll explain what I don't know if you guys remember front page, but front page was an old system that I used to use back in the days and was widely known. And SharePoint was kind of similar to that in my eyes. I miss front page. It was a great site. And it's sort of similar to the IIS environment you guys probably heard of and seen, right? So you have your IIS environments. So I'm sure you guys know a little bit about that and what IIS is, right? So you would have your sites installed here, and you can add an application, right, in this specific path, right? And you can select and write the physical path. So again, you can add your specific app sites in here. You can add a site. You can create a new site, right? Add it to a specific pool, and then create the contact directory, right? Wherever the content directory is, and then you can pass through authenticate and connect as a specific user. It's all done here. Again, give it the host name, the binding. If you are using binding, right, you have your binding ports, right? So you're more than welcome to use that. If you have your sites here, you can use those as well too, based on the machine that you have that hosts your site, right? So the IIS again, separate. It's Internet Information Services, and that's was installed as a role uh, within our server manager. Right, so I've installed that role. So if you were to go to look for the specific role, there's 43 uh, roles that you can install for the web server, right? And that includes like your ASP.NET, your ASPs, your web server extensions. And again, you can use to host internal or external websites, or just to provide your environment for developers to create those web-based applications, right? So, you have these different roles and subcategories that can be installed for specific reasons. And again, you can click on each one and read the description, right? So for HTTP redirection, what that does and how that works. Again, I had to install this for my MECM server, my SCCM. And again, we'll explain. We'll have to go through all this anyways when we talk about installing our SharePoint site and how this is detrimental to the installation aspect of it. Okay, so here's your IIS, right? Site, and this will have your pools, right? And that will let you manage the list of applications that are within your pool, or and those are just associated with processes where they're called worker processes, and those contain one or more applications, and they provide isolation among those different applications, right? So um, here's what the default website home would look like, right? And you can filter, show all. You can show by detail with the description of what each is and how that does, right? So this all has the information that you need. Okay, we're not going to do this. We're not going to talk about IIS in this one, but I'm sorry, we're not going to install the IIS or work on the IIS, but I just want to show you what the IIS does, because we will see that role and those roles and features installed with our SharePoint server site. Okay. Going back to our uh, slides here again. SharePoint portal server has its areas and personal sites, like our my sites. And again, these are just sites, workspaces, and areas. So when we talk about front page, okay, uh, what is front page? right now it uses HTML tools, like, so it's like having X-ray vision for your web pages. That's what that is. Again, it allows you to access and modify HTML tags, like your hypertext markup language, um, while you're editing the page uh, in view. So the normal tab is in page view. Using that HTML tool is, like I said, just like having an X-ray vision for your web page, right? When we talk about Microsoft front page and what it is, it's an old application that's been around for a long, 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 long time, right? So when we look at the history behind that, um, it's a what you see, what you get editor. That's what they call it. WYS. What you see is what you get. Um, so it was called Office front page, but is a discontinued editor now from Microsoft and Microsoft Windows. It was branded as part of the Office suites. I don't know if you guys remember this icon here, but this was very well known and well used in Office Online. Here, I don't know if you guys remember this, and this was back in the days. Um, so it's been replaced with SharePoint Designer now. Obviously, if you guys are designers of SharePoint, for your developers and designers out there, you guys will probably using that right now. And it was created by Vermeer Technologies and developed by Microsoft. And we're talking about 29 years ago. So we're talking about, it used to be called Vermeer Front Page back in 1995. So since then, these two products are also discontinued. 2007, obviously, seven and uh, what SharePoint Designer, right? But they were in favor of a web-based version of SharePoint Designer, and those three HTML editors were desktop apps, right? So they're basically now a web-based app, right? They were a best web-based app, right? So, for example, the designer was formerly known as a Microsoft Office Designer. It's a discontinued HTML freeware that was used for creating and modifying sites, workflows, and web pages. Again, these are all discontinued now. Um, Unfortunately, the features were cool. It had its split view, it had its code view, and preview and design view without having to hassle between design and code. Um, you know, it, 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 again, anything after 2003 um, was included in the small server premium editions, right? Including the extensions, right? That allowed the clients to communicate with the web servers. So it relied on the HTTP protocol and the CGI posts, right? So again, it's been around for a long, 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 long time, right? So I do remember this front page used a lot in companies and businesses. Um, and again, you could have added. It was just easily known with the VTI. If you guys knew about this VTI in websites, so anything with underscore VTI underscore, we knew right away that was a front page. And that was the cool thing about it because I used to see it a lot. I was like, "What's VTI?" And we knew right away if you had the VTI, we can spot that from a mile away, right? Um, Again, it's no longer there. So just to kind of understand how things have changed and migrated from 2003 to 2019 SharePoint. Let's go back to our slides here. Um, we talk about sites and workspaces. So we have our sites, and at the top of the chain, we have our top level sites, and we have our child sites, and we have our sub sites within our child sites, where our other child sites within it, right? So we have our site top level sites are just the islands without the SPF site directories. Child sites are just subdirectories below their parent. The top level site and its child and his children are called site collections. So that'll store anything to do with your site, your list, and your web part galleries, right? So that's important to know. The best thing about SharePoint page customization, when we talk about page customizing and within SharePoint, the best thing about the SharePoint technology is it's ready to use out of the box user experience, right? UI. So the worst thing about it is also the ready to use out of the box UI, and this is a uh, tundrum, tundrum. Like it basically it overthinks itself. So it's the best thing or it's the worst thing. That's the best thing and that's the worst thing. It's just the ready to use out of the box UI. And there's worse things about it as well too. So when we customize the SharePoint look and feel, we look at themes, we look at style sheets. Back in the days, we had front page 2003, right? That's something we talked about. And then our site definitions, right? So there were some issues with that and the look and feel of it and how it's been migrated and how it's been changed from 2003 to 2019, right? So we're looking at 16 years. Oh, excuse me. So we also talk about templates within our Windows Server services only, right? We look at the list templates and the site templates, how it allows end users to reuse and share customizations. Within those templates, we can store in-site collections, level galleries, packaged as an STP file, and that's an import and export from the gallery. So you also have your front page FWP file is almost the same thing as your SDP. And then back in the days, we would rename it to N in a cab to see what's inside. And the templates changes do not affect existing sites or lists, right? So that's something good to note, especially if you guys are wanting to learn about that. And here's some questions to ask. So where is the content um, within your site and application to your connecting to what you're connecting to, right? So um, where's the content and the application you're connecting to? So you have your application side, which is your files, right? And then you also have your content, obviously, and that's your SQL server. So within your files, you have your site definitions, your application servers, and you'll see this after. You'll store your admin pages, your JavaScript, your style sheets, and your web part codes. And then within your SQL content, you have your lists, your web part placement metadata, your site metadata, and your user content, right? So that's where all the content and applications are stored or being connected to within your databases, right? So speaking about databases, we also talk about um, site definitions or content and application. We talk about site definitions, and we hear that a lot. That each site definition defines a unique type of SharePoint site. Multiple site definitions ship in a Microsoft Windows SharePoint service. So you have your service such as your team site, your meeting workspace, and your document workspace. So understand that what a site definition is because you hear that a lot. So there are also a set of files that are located in the file system of the SharePoint Services web server. So that'll include your SharePoint portal server, like your XML files, your ASPX pages, your document templates, like your HTML, your dot, et cetera, et cetera. And then you also have your content files, which are your docs, your GFs, your GIFs, your JPEGs, etc. Then you have your site definitions that specify list types, web pages, navigation, and site content. And then they also reference installed list definitions such as your web parts, event handlers, and custom JScripts. We'll talk about the deployment. Okay, that's not important. Okay, all right. So let's get into the lab. And the best part about it is the lab, and we'll go ahead and start creating that. So the majority of the topics we're going to be discussing is all lab steps. So again, this lab is going to be tricky. You might see some errors, so be ready for them. and Google them and ask me for help if you need it. Okay, guys. Um, Two things we look at when we talk about topics and labs. We need to plan, prepare, install, and this is what we're going to be doing together. The planning, the preparation, and installation of the server, the 2009 SharePoint server, and we're also going to manage farms, web applications, and content databases. Right. When we talk about the planning, preparation, and installation of SharePoint 2019, there's several factors that we need to take into consideration, like the number of servers, the role for each server, and the security counts during the installation, right? So it'll also examine the available editions of SharePoint 29 from which we can choose when creating our production SharePoint farm. And we'll look into those details um, uh, in a second. So when we talk about the farm types, by understanding how SharePoint is going to be accessed and by who it will be accessing it will greatly help you determine that, guys, what type of SharePoint farm you want to create. So you have to understand how it's going to be accessed and by who it's going to be accessed. And that'll greatly help you determine that type of farm you want to create. This is a test environment. It's not a in production environment, but within your in production environments, you need to know the different what it's going to be used and how it's going to be used, especially the architecture aspect of it. Building the correct type of farm, guys. You'll initially have a great will initially have a great impact on what you can do with it later. So future planning is also important, and how will it impact what options are available to you later, right? So what can you do with it later and how will it impact you, right? So know a little bit about how much you need when you're building the hardware and getting those requirements and software requirements, because that will impact what options are available to you later, right? Proper planning for the deployment of SharePoint for your environment is necessary to avoid the RNR. That's known as your rip and replace in the future, right? So understand proper planning because for deployment is important, right? So we need to avoid that rip and replace in the future where we're gonna have to go back and you know destroy the server and replace it again or upgrade it again, right? So know what you're doing. Proper planning is important, especially when you're. And I'm gonna highlight that, but proper planning is important for you guys. And learning that and taking a look at that is that will kind of help you understand when you're reviewing or helping customers or clients with that, right? Or stakeholders. Our second topic, again, when we talk about the different farms and web applications and content databases, right? Because these are very important to understand. And you'll see that when we go ahead and install it. So within our single farm, it's the first type of farm built in. It's a single farm with a built-in database. So anything that you have will automatically have that built-in database. Anything after you would have to add in manually. So it's configured is not recommended for production environment because it's very restrict and rigid. So um, I'll show you guys how to create one of these, right? Um, Again, it'll install like it'll automatically install the server express and the SharePoint on the same server, but again, it's kind of also known as your standalone farm, where this structure imposes limitations as to the ability to add more service to the farm. So it's not really scalable. Like I can't add more. It's just a standalone, right? And I think that's what we're gonna create to show you. We don't need a big environment, but you guys will make that decision in planning. And you cannot use the user profile sync service because this deployment uses the Express. There's just additional limitations that you need to be aware of. So the maximum size of content database is 10 GB, right? And the number of processors constrained, and there are limits on the amount of memory the instance can be used as SQL service instance can be used for SharePoint. Hang on, guys. A little bit of performance issue here, guys. Give me 1 second, okay? Gonna have to wait. Oh, let's just create. Oh, waiting for the spinning circle to leave. I don't know what's going on here. Sorry about that, guys. See if I can pause this video. Just gonna pause the video. I'll be right back.